Look down at the Mediterranean coast of northern Beirut, and you see a sun-drenched, vibrant city. It's an atmosphere buzzing with high-energy promenades and modern glass towers overlooking the water. Zoom in closer, and you'll find a dizzying cultural complexity. This small stretch of land is home to 18 distinct religious factions living side by side. That cosmopolitan blend is exactly what earned post-war Lebanon its reputation as a wealthy tourist hub, often called the Paris of the Middle East. But take a 10-minute taxi ride south into the neighborhood of Dahia, and that affluent facade completely vanishes. The wide boulevards suddenly give way to dense, heavy concrete architecture and narrow, shadowed streets. Here, the visual environment shifts drastically. You are surrounded by militant murals, Iranian flags, and posters of political figures, marking this as Hezbollah territory. Finding two completely alien realities separated by just a few miles defines the core tension of modern Lebanon. It is a nation deeply divided against itself. To understand how this fracture happened, we have to rewind to the 1932 National Pact. This agreement divided political power based on a religious census of the population. Specific quotas were locked in. Maronite Christians held the presidency, Sunnis the premiership, and Shias the Speaker of Parliament. But as decades passed, demographic data shifted, while this power structure remained entirely frozen. The first major shock to that frozen system came from outside its borders. Massive waves of Palestinian refugees fled into Lebanon in 1948, and again in 1970, placing enormous stress on an already delicate sectarian balance. These sprawling refugee settlements didn't stay quiet. With the arrival of the PLO, these camps were rapidly transformed into heavily armed, militarized zones. When you force a shifting population into a rigid political cage, the math breaks down. By 1975, a full-scale civil war was inevitable. In 1975, the central authority of the state completely collapsed. Lebanon splintered into a chaotic web of warring sectarian militias. The conflict evolved into an every faction for themselves reality. Neighbors took up arms, and regular city blocks were instantly transformed into active front lines. Over the next 15 years, catastrophic urban combat reduced the nation's capital to ruins, leaving deep physical and psychological scars across the country. The chaos drew in neighboring powers. In 1982, Israeli forces launched an invasion that ended in a prolonged, bitter occupation of southern Lebanon. That occupation created a power vacuum in the south. Iran, fresh off its own Islamic revolution, stepped in to fund and train marginalized Shia groups to fight the Israeli forces. Out of that Iranian intervention, Hezbollah, or the Party of God, was born. It was engineered specifically to act as a proxy force. By the early 1980s, Lebanon had effectively ceased to function as a sovereign nation. It had become the ultimate chessboard for the Middle East's regional powers. When the Civil War ended in 1990, massive reconstruction swept through Beirut's downtown. Heavy machinery worked to pave over rubble and mask the scars. But underneath the new concrete lay a glaring paradox. While nearly every other militia in the country agreed to disarm, Hezbollah kept its weapons and tightly solidified its control over southern districts like Dahia. Today, Hezbollah operates entirely as a state within a state. It commands a military apparatus that is vastly more powerful than the official Lebanese army. This creates a permanent trap. Lebanon is repeatedly dragged into devastating regional wars that its central government never authorized, and its citizens never chose. Yet, in stark contrast to this political paralysis, the Lebanese people maintain an incredible cultural vitality. Like the ancient cedar tree on their flag, they possess a deep historical endurance that outlasts the violence. The tragedy of Lebanon doesn't stem from a lack of internal strength or resilience. It comes from a fractured political architecture held hostage by the proxy wars of its neighbors.